Hello, friends, and welcome to Your Health Matters. My name's Carl Sterling. Great to be here, and I have a real special guest with us today. A lot of you know of him, and if you don't, his name is Matt Gutman, ABC Chief National Correspondent. And he's the author of a couple of books. The one that I most recently read is called No Time to Panic. And so without further ado, I just want to introduce my special guest today, Mr. Matt Gutman. Thanks for joining me. How you doing, man?
I'm okay, Carl. I'm happy to be with you. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks a million. Yeah, I've been watching you for years, man. Years. And just a little bit about why I decided to reach out to you is because in my own life, I have had anxiety issues really bad. You know, I'm 63 now, so as I get older, I'm learning how to manage better. But panic attacks once in a blue moon, and this stuff affects a lot of people, and it's a topic that a lot of people don't want to talk about. You've been very open about it. I've seen interviews you've done on different podcasts and of course, your books. And so I just wanted to reach out. And actually, the first question I have, in No Time to Panic, now you open up about your personal struggles with panic attacks. And was there a particular moment that made you decide, I need to share this stuff? This is deeply personal. But how did this latest book come about? And do you have another book coming out, by the way?
I'm always thinking about stuff, Carl.
Yeah.
I got to say to the viewers, I don't know if people have seen you, but I just heard for the first time that you're 63, and I'm blown away because you do not look like you are 63. So I start this off in a bit of shock.
Oh, you're too nice. Okay, thank you very much.
I didn't know that you experienced this kind of anxiety, and I'm sorry that you had, because as you know, and we're not young, we're not kids anymore, but anxiety is a lifetime condition. And, we're often told by health gurus and whomever out there in the wellness world that, if you just do this one simple trick or the 5 simple things, you will cure panic. I have the actual surefire way that you're going to be better. And it's not really like that. It's basically a lifetime of work and a lifetime of maintenance, just like our physical bodies are. You can't just do a workout one day and feel better. You can't do a workout 1 week. This is lifetime maintenance. And so that's how I've come to think about my mental health well-being. It's the same thing as my body. I work on it every single day. I do something physical, which helps my brain, and I do stuff with my brain that helps the rest of me. But to come back to your question, I had hundreds of panic attacks live on air for many, many years. For the first 10 years or 12 years or so, I didn't even know that these spells of, suffering, I would call them, were panic. I mean, racing heart rate, shortness of breath, dizziness, sweating, trembling, back pain. I wasn't quite sure what it was. I called it nerves. And it took a while to even come to grips with the fact that I experienced panic attacks, but I did. And I invariably got through them until one time I was reporting on the Kobe Bryant helicopter crash, which happened about 8 miles from where I'm sitting right now, from my home, Sunday morning, and I'd been on a long run of stories. Get a call from my boss. She's like, "Can you get to this helicopter crash? We think it might be Kobe." And incidentally, we're speaking today on the 34th anniversary of my dad's death, also in a plane crash.
Oh,
and so the concept of Kobe dying, and maybe his daughter being on the helicopter, and my dad dying in a plane crash, and me just eclipsed. And eventually I was suspended over it, and for a month. And even before I was suspended, I was thinking about either leaving journalism or doing something, but mostly leaving journalism because it was not fun anymore because of the panic attacks. And that panic attack and the suspension and the fact that I might have hurt Kobe Bryant's family caused this real massive reassessment in my life. And I decided that it was time to stop running away from the anxiety and the panic and to start facing it face on, head on, and do something about it. And the next 4 years of my life were basically trying to find solutions. And I decided that I would try everything, literally everything, until I found something.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Prior to being in the news business, journalism, maybe growing up or as a kid or teenager or anytime, were you having panic attacks back then?
Yeah. So I was school council president, and I used to have to deliver the morning address. And I would have these mini panics, but I didn't know what it was. I thought, again, it was just nerves. I thought it was normal. But, that tightness in the chest, the struggle to breathe, the heart palpitations, the sweating, the tunnel vision, this is all classic stress response. But I didn't know that that's what was happening. And, for a lot of performers, that's a great thing. It gives you this punch. And in my TV career, it actually bolstered me, because the executive producers of the shows that I was working on always said, were like, wow, Matt really punches through. So much energy, so much vitality when he's on air. That's because I thought I was dying, but, it also was this superpower. And so I had it in high school, but the first full-on, sweat through my underwear panic was delivering my college thesis. And, I thought I knew it cold, but as soon as I stood in front of my esteemed colleagues at the political science department at Williams College, I literally just died inside. And I thought I was molting into a werewolf. It felt like this out-of-body experience. It was so physically uncomfortable. And time stood still, and every bad thing in my body felt like it was happening at once, that I had no idea what it was. And then I did what I do really, really well, and what has helped me in my work as a journalist. I compartmentalized. Put it aside. I was like, okay, whatever that was, I don't want it ever happening again. And if I don't address it, maybe it won't happen again. So I'll just bury that thing. Let's not talk about that. And I was seeing a shrink at the time, Carl. I was in therapy. But I couldn't really get to the stuff that was the deeper stuff there. I wasn't quite ready for it. It took time.
Yeah, man, that's just really something. Yeah, well, you know what? This might not be a bad time to just head out to a break, and we'll continue talking about this when we come back. I have with me today a very special guest, Matt Gutman, Chief National Correspondent for ABC News. Perhaps I was just watching you last week. You're in Israel, and I know you're heading back soon. You were going through the tunnels and everything, and I want to talk about some of that stuff too. So thank you for listening, folks, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Okay, we are back with Matt Gutman. And Matt, I'm curious, recently, have you experienced anything in this regard? You've got anxiety, panic attack coming on. You feel it coming on while you're on air. And if so, is there any, other than compartmentalizing, are there any other coping mechanisms that you have?
So I spend the year trying to find ways to just heal myself. I spent years trying to find ways to heal myself. Everything from psychedelics to cognitive behavioral therapy, meditation, which I've been basically doing since I was a kid. Not religiously, but, whenever I needed it. And there is no surefire cure, right? And I asked the shaman that I did a psychedelic mushroom trip with about, what's the answer? What's the secret? And she said, everything, right? So it really is about the holistic practice. And sometimes I'm better at it, and sometimes I'm worse at it. Panic attacks are in pretty good shape right now, but there's always anxiety. I always feel nervous before going on air. There's a lot riding on it, right? If you make a mistake, one of the things they teach you in cognitive behavioral therapy is don't be afraid of flying on planes, because the statistics say you're much safer flying an airplane or a commercial plane than you are driving in a car.
Yeah,
you're more likely to get hit by lightning than to die on a commercial flight. Statistically, that makes sense. But for my case, I had a panic attack because I feared making a mistake on air, and that mistake on air. So my worst fear came true. So you know, cognitive behavioral therapy, one of its main principles is psychoeducation, teaching you that the thing you're afraid of, spiders, snakes, flying in airplanes, is not realistic. But for me, it was. So like there is a lot riding. I can make a mistake on air and I can be penalized severely for that mistake. So it's important that I still take it very seriously. And I know that there are ramifications. So I still feel anxiety. And when I'm not like trying to do my general holistic practice of taking care of my mind and my body, the more acute stuff I do is like, I will focus on the five senses, which sort of enfolds your vagus nerve and also helps, frankly, distract you. So I will see five things in my field of vision that are the color green. You can narrow it down. Then I will focus on four things that I can hear. Then I'll focus on three things I can sense, either smell or feel with my body, my shoes, my back, my feet against the ground, the microphone. Very like have a panic attack. I also have a breathing thing, which I'll like imagine a rosary bead or a shoelace with 5 knots. And I'll breathe deeply at the top knot, exhale slowly, slowly, slowly to the fourth knot. Breathe deep in, exhale slowly, slowly to the third and the second, and same thing, repeat until you get to 0 knots. And then if you need more, you do it again. So they're basically mindfulness techniques that help you sort of relax and, beat out that stress response when you feel the heart palpitating or the shortness of breath or the dizziness or all of it.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. And the thing that seems to help me the best so far, breathing.
Yeah.
I've tried different types, and even on, for clients and listeners of the show, well, I guess I could mention it now, is if you go to carlsterling.com, Carl with a K, there's a breathing tab. These are just things that I've tried and certain things I really like a lot. And it just, if you look scientifically, there are things that can happen, like the reset of the autonomic nervous system, and even helps me get to sleep at night, which I generally have no problem. I'm usually very good sleepers. I mean, heck, I've been in front of the ABC studios in Times Square and took a nap on a bench. I had a friend with me, there's a little police trailer over there too, right? So,
dude, I think
Ying, will you hold this bag for just make sure nobody steals it? I'm out. However, if I'm having one of those nights, worrying, I breathe, helps me a lot. I'll get right to sleep. We have to find what works for us, right? That's the key. And you've explored a lot of different things and therapies and techniques and strategies. Do you feel, I'm just curious, would you say at all there's a stigma at all attached to the anxiety or panic attacks that's negative, or are people understanding in your world?
Well, I think one of the major solutions for me for the panic was realizing through evolutionary psychology that panic is normal. Like my big question, Carl, was about myself, because I felt so much self-hatred and stigma. I was like, well, why am I defective? And then I thought, well, I'm defective. Why am I defective? How is it possible that something that seems so deleterious to the human condition, something that could get us killed, right? The stress response, the freeze response, why does it still exist in a human genome? And so I went down this many-month-long rabbit hole of evolution and evolutionary psychology. And the bottom line is there's a reason it persists in the human genome, and that is it's beneficial. It's
survival, right?
Yes, it helps us.
Yeah.
So like it either helps you slow down when you need to, or, freeze is maybe not the worst thing in the world. Like, yes, it causes embarrassment and shame, but it keeps you on an even keel. And there are all sorts of processes that are working during this period that are actually evolutionarily adaptive. And one of the doctors I worked with was like, hey, listen, like everything that happens to you when you have a panic attack has an adaptive reason. Your heart races because it's getting blood to the rest of your system so you can run faster in case a lion is bursting out of the bush to, bite you. You have tunnel vision because most humans were most vulnerable at night. So what happens? Your pupils expand to get in all the light possible at night so you can defend yourself. And why do you get sweaty so quickly? Maybe even to become slippery. All things worked.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
made me think, well, maybe I'm actually normal. And that sense of feeling halfway normal was really helpful. Instead of feeling like this weird kink in the human genome or defective, I'm like, oh, I'm actually normal. This makes sense. So just like that basic stuff was super helpful. And it's the psychoeducational approach, which is teaching yourself stuff that will help you better understand why you are the way you are and about the environment around you. And so I learned there are lots of things I can do to make my mental health better in general. I understood that my mental health is not a lifelong malady, but can be treated with work. And I learned that it's normal, like that this is part of the human genome. It's there for a reason, and it's actually adaptive. And I just have to use it to harness the gift. And in fact, it worked for me because all those panic attacks, all that stress response, all those years is what cemented my reputation as being really good live on air. Because yes, I was intense when I got on air and I wasn't always having a panic attack, but I almost always had a stress response. And sometimes it was appropriate. And it gave me this real energy, which people gravitated toward. It's just interesting how just changing your perception of something can make such a physical and mental health difference.
Yeah, I think those are just all kinds of bars of gold and information right there, because when you look back and you go into this evolutionary psychology, research, and you find out this is survival. This is how we keep surviving. I mean, yeah, we respond. We need to have stress. There's such thing as good stress. We can stay alive because of it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And not get eaten by the bear or something. Well, and to understand that and adapt it into what you're doing, I love how you describe that, because now you feel more normal, maybe. We have to go to a break in just a second, so I'll tell you what, let's continue this. You're listening to Your Health Matters here on the iHeart Network. My name's Carl Sterling. Special guest is Chief National Correspondent for ABC News, Matt Gutman. We'll be right back. This is really epic information. Sometimes I get tongue-tied. I'm not a professional. I'm just a guy.
You're amazing.
But
I love you. You're great.
I really want to have people just benefit from other people who have something epic to offer. I mean, your story and the fact you're so open about it is really beautiful. So we have one more segment left, 9 minutes, maybe 10 minutes max. I was wondering if, but let me ask you, what would you want to cover in the last 10 minutes? Is there any key takeaway? And did I read you have another book coming out like in October?
No, I have, the paperback is just out of this book, but I don't have another book coming out in October that I'm aware of. But I want to do another book, but not about this.
Think about a takeaway for people, but what else? How should we come back in?
Follow up on what you were saying about the evolutionary psychology and the benefits, and now I can't remember what it was that I was trying to say. Oh, that.
I'll start recording. Is that cool? Oh, it is recording. Okay, let me bring us back. Okay, we are back with ABC News Chief National Correspondent, Mr. Matt Gutman. Matt, you have a few thoughts on your mind. I know we're talking about evolutionary psychology. Please share with us.
Yeah, you raised a really interesting point, Carl, because one of the other things that I learned in the years of reporting this book, which is really about healing me, right? Like I didn't set out to help other people, frankly. I set out to try to heal myself. And along the way, I realized a number of things. One is that I'm not alone, that there are millions and millions of Americans who experience panic and severe anxiety, but specifically panic. But I wanted to say something that I learned that is sort of like a weird twist. the whole evolutionary psychology thing told me that my body, my brain does not care if I'm happy or not. It doesn't care if I'm well adjusted. All it cares about is that I physically survive and that my progeny survive. That is what we are geared for on Earth. So what's perverse about it is that actually gave me a lot of pleasure, because I was like, okay, so I'm not really meant to be happy, whatever that is, but any modicum, any small measure of happiness or contentment that I achieve is something I earned. I did that.
Right.
So you can pat yourself on the back.
That's
you
true.
can feel good about something.
You talk about that in the book too. I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sort of, again, it's like, it's sort of a gratitude look at things. Hey, you know.
Now that I think back on the book, because I just read it for the second time last week, knowing when you first connected, I'm thinking, okay, I got to get it together. So I started studying some things. You're the first person I've ever come across who describes that it's really not, like, happiness is not why we're here. We do make a big deal about it, and it's nice when we're happy, but you couldn't be happy if you didn't have some sad. There's no in without an out, or up without a down, and a front without a back, right? So it's all relative, but survival, just being alive is one thing. Happiness is an option, and earning it is a good way to put it.
Well, and then it makes you feel even better when you actually achieve it. When you achieve not just happiness, but contentment. And it's like working out, right? Like, you work out, that's something you earn, the benefit of the workout, the dopamine hit, the endorphins if you work really hard, the way you feel and look, you earned that. And to me, the mental well-being became something that I achieved rather than it was something that I that I inherited or was given to me. No, it's something I earned. And so when I feel good about it, it makes me feel that much better. And so you don't read about it a lot because people don't like to say that, because people don't like to hear it. Everybody wants to hear we're entitled to happiness, but that's not really the way humans are. And so I don't know, people don't love it, but I feel like that's the reality of it.
I love that. You talk quite a bit in the book about brain health. I mean, not just from like a psychological or whatever panic management viewpoint, but exercise and what it does for your brain. And I think you even talk about neuroplasticity and BDNF and all these things that I only read those in the science books because I'm a science nerd, right? But you folks, you got to go buy No Time to Panic by Matt Gutman. It's not only is it a great book and talking about health, emotional, mental, physical, brain health, but it's also a pretty cool history into journalism. I mean, you're talking about some stories, some things you've been through right on the front lines in different places, in different countries around the world, and you're in a war zone, man. You've got helmets on, and your life could be. I'm sure it's been at stake many times. And I was watching you last week going through the tunnels.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine what that was like, but I'm definitely diverting. I'm totally going on a Carl tangent, but I'm coming back. But before I get back, I just want to say thank you for the work you do, because you're going in and doing some serious stuff, and I appreciate it, and so do millions of others. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much, Carl. I really appreciate you saying that.
And to have you talk about brain health in a book is like epic, because this is my mojo, man. This is a brain clinic here. It's a longevity clinic. This is what we do. And you're talking about it, recognizing it, and sharing about it is so cool.
And there's also an element to it that, and I recommend, there are lots of tips and things that I tried in the book, but it's also about male self-care, which I didn't entitle myself to for a very long time until I started reporting the book. So like the whole endeavor is being like, okay, I'm a guy. And so like I'm a dad. So I work, I'm a family guy.
I dad. Somewhere I'm interrupting, but I love that one. I dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I granddad.
I didn't afford myself. Right. We're very, very, again, compartmentalized, and I was very regimented. But one of the things that didn't have a slot was like taking care of the inside of Matt. And I allowed myself, I didn't think about it this way, but the book was really finding a way to self-care. And whatever way that people find that works for them is good. You just have to find that method, whatever method that is, but it is important.
Oh, yeah. I mean, life is a journey. It's such a journey. It's really, for me, I've been, through like everybody, a lot of ups and downs, pretty serious stuff and self-abuse, being really, really heavy way back. And that's what got me into this health business, is being really obese and sick. But the thing is, better late than never. And I was after 50 when I really started to get it together, really get it together. And now I'm on this mission, and I love to meet people like yourself who are on a mission too, to share, be open. And, what you're doing helps a lot of people. You're reporting news, but you wrote books and you're sharing that. And so many people, deal with these issues. We're humans first, right? It's part of life. Do you have any particular message as we come towards the end here?
Yes.
Any particular takeaway message for folks?
Well, there are literally anywhere from 25 to 50% of Americans will experience a panic attack once in their lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so to people who've experienced it, like me the first time, and don't know what the hell is going on. First of all, when you feel those heart palpitations, you are entitled to feel that you think you're having a heart attack, because most people can't distinguish the symptoms of a panic attack from a heart attack, even 911 operators. So don't beat yourself up if that is what happens and you end up checking yourself at the emergency room. It's okay. The second thing, if you are having a panic attack, they are not going to kill you. It typically lasts anywhere, the actual panic, the worst of it, is 15 to 90 seconds. After that, what you're experiencing is severe anxiety, but it's no longer panic. So you're not going to experience panic for hours at a time. That doesn't happen because it's your body's stress response. And what it's trying to do is figure out where the threat is. And typically, within a very short period of time, it will figure out what the threat is. And then you're going to go descend into the rest of the which all of us deal with and can manage.
Yeah.
So you're not going to die. You're going to be okay. And it's probably going to be over in a maximum of 90 seconds. So just hang with it and know that you're not alone. So many of us to fix this, and you're going to get through it.
Great words of wisdom there. And it's true. I mean, in my own experience, it's usually like that. I did end up in the hospital once because of it. And I was only 26 years old. They raced me in, 26-year-old with chest pain. And then the doctor comes in after the image and says, I don't know what's wrong with you, but your heart is fine. You got to figure out how to manage your anxiety. He's like, oh my gosh. So
anywhere from 40 to 58% of people who are admitted to the ER nationwide with cardiac symptoms are experiencing anxiety or panic.
Wow.
Because it's hard to tell the difference.
Well, Matt, I just want to say thank you so much for making time. You're really busy. You got news to do tonight. You got all kinds of stuff, family and everything. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to meet with you and talk with you. Grateful.
It was a great pleasure. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, sir. And also to all of our listeners, we really appreciate your listening and tuning in. Our ratings have been so high, and I am grateful for your, tuning into this radio station at this hour to listen to this show, because we're here to help people. This ain't about me. It's about we. This is about how can we increase and elongate the health span within your lifespan, not just physically, mentally, emotionally, every way possible. So that's what we're about. And I appreciate you listening. Remember, go to carlsterling.com. That's Carl with a K. And you can hear all the recorded episodes of all the radio shows there. Have a great day. Take care.